see if we can have the right slide. You support me with that
Yes.
one? Okay. According to ways of saying, I usually say there is better to be late in this life than to be too early into next life. So the travel is the goal, as we usually say as well, according to let the travel take its time. So my name is Akko Karlsson. I'm the chairman of ERB board this year. And as you heard, we are having a rotation principle around our countries. And I think that's one of the involvement to bring also the engagement for our cooperation. And Euroregion Baltic started after the ice-cold years with the Iron Curtains, when Baltic Sea was the border to exclude our countries from each other. To work as a politician that grew up during the 70s and the 80s, when we had no information at all, more than the big Russia, the bad guys, we don't talk more about it, end of story. So that was the picture of the countries on the other side of the Baltic during my grown-up years. And then there was a debate to bring the European Union connection and so on in the late 80s in Sweden and in the 90s. And there was a big discussion about this. In my county, which is Kalmar County, we have 12 municipalities. We are a long, narrow county, and we have an island in Baltic Sea as well. Of course, we have a bridge. It was for a very long time the longest bridge in Europe. Now we connected Sweden with Denmark, and so that's the more longer bridge today. And to talk about history and future, I put this picture on sitting on the rocks in Baltic Sea, because Baltic Sea, of course, is not the border anymore. It's the common water that we have a lot of interest in. To keep clean, to keep fresh, to have tourism, to have fish, to have quality life with water. And water, such as, is also the starter, so to say. You heard about the Big Bang Theory once upon a time. And you know, the Big Bang, and there were gas, and then it's were falling rain for several days and years and millions of years, and then there were the blue-green algae starting to create life. And when you sometimes hear about racism, etc., I usually raise my hand and say, do you know we have the same relatives actually? And people say, what do you mean? Are we related to each other? Yeah, actually we are. You know these blue-green algae? Do you know about them? It's really fun to think about evolution as a common goal for peacemaking. And concerning, we talk about water, science, blue growth, green growth. We know today nature is pretty smart, because it was quite poisoned before this blue-green started. And as a gardener, of course, I'm satisfied to know the green growth is the goal. I usually say when the gardening now, the springtime, that's really growth. When you can see the blossom in the garden, and you know, you put down one potato and you got 25 back in the autumn. Amazing, amazing. And according to water and blue-green algae, we have the sun energy going on. And it turns out that you can bring up how many mining industries for rare metal, but still the plants got it. They are very smart to bring energy from sun and create energy and growth. And I discuss a lot with these sun energy makers, and they actually say, you know, Kiesel, is it the same in English? Kiesel? Kiesel?
Jag tror det.
Yeah. Cirka?
Ah, cirka.
Yeah. It's the smartest one, and you don't need the poison mining industry. So again, nature is pretty smart. So Baltic as uniting. There you are. And when Kalmar County, with the 12 municipalities, in the regional council says, I'm from Västervik, up north, and even out up there from the countryside. So I had like 4.5 hour driving down here today. And as you see, we are like 10,000 islands. We have a lot of archipelagos. And we are one of the 4th biggest tourism area of Sweden. So when we have a summer with a lot of heavy algal bloom, and it's all over in the national news, we can actually count how many money we loses per day, because the tourists will say, oh shit, we won't go there, the water is poisoned for dogs, for children, it will be no good summer for us. And they cancel their night stay on the hotel, on the campings, etc. We lost pretty heavy much of money. So it's really a business thing for us to have a clean Baltic. And we have, of course, 2.6 million guest nights every summer, and it's actually more and more every year. And we have the longest shore of coast to the Baltic, 525 miles, Swedish miles. Actually, the longest area for coast to Baltic.
5,000 kilometers.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a pretty long distance. So we have a lot of work to do, because all municipalities have the river mouth to the Baltic Sea. We have a lot of agriculture in our area, which is heavily impact on the water quality. And we also have problem with supply of fresh water. Because when you're so close to the Baltic Sea, when you drill, you can have impact from salt water. And we are now heavily, of course, Öland have for a long time had problem with fresh waters. Last summer was emergency situation. They were forbidden to fill up the pools, the farmers making a plan to slaughter their animals because they're running out of water for farmers. And the municipality down here in Mörbylånga actually had dry holes for fresh water in Mars before the tourist season. They couldn't supply the inhabitants of fresh water. So they had to drive water from Kalmar over the bridge and put it in the holes here to supply the municipalities with fresh water. It cost the municipality 19 million Swedish crowns that summer. Authorities made an emergency plan, so they made a plumbery with freshwater connection. But you know what? There is no more water, just you take it more distance away. Because this year, south of Sweden, up to Örebro, is actually lack of fresh water. We are under the normal level of fresh water, and we are now in April. So we have a huge problem. My municipality, Västervik, we have 70% of fresh water from lakes. After 4 seasons without snow, 5 this year, there is no refilling on the groundwater. And also the surface water go out in the sunny days of warm, hot summertime. So last year, we were sitting here with a fresh water supply for 26,000 inhabitants, and we were down on the limit for production. And we were Friday, and we were calling the board and saying, okay, we have to, telling that we will now go under our limits, because we're really running out of water. That weekend, this was in November, we had 110 millimeters of rain. It filled up again in November, my friends. So we had forbidding for disused water until the month of November, December last year. And then it was said, okay, now the water is secured. And then the Association for Winter Sports called the municipality. We want to make the ice for winter skiing, And we said, okay, you can't take fresh water for ice when we have this huge problem with fresh water. So this has started a new process for municipalities, how to secure water and using the fresh produced water to what we should do. Actually, 80% of all fresh water go to the loo. We're actually flushing away the fresh water in loos. So I think, talking to business and growth, there will be a huge challenge to change the system of plumbery for infrastructure in the future, because 80% fresh water go out to the loo. And actually there was again a smart guy here in Mörbylånga. He had this tourism camp, and the municipality forbid them to fill the pools. And he said, what will I do? This is one of my income for the summer. I have small children, the kinder pools, etc. This is a huge problem. But we have the Baltic Sea. What about the plumbery down to the Baltic Sea, bring up the water? And while I'm doing this, I want to save the fresh water. And actually it's crazy to have it in all these about 50 loos that I have in my camp area. So he had some tests with the municipality, and he actually brought the Baltic Sea water to the loo and to the swimming pools. Not in the same time, of course, separate system. But he did solve the problem, and he wanted to do well for the municipality to save fresh water. So this is a situation well known about. In Västervik, my municipality, the municipality actually bought a big area of land, about 65-70 kilometers inland of the municipality, to have a long-term supply of fresh water. But you can imagine, it's a sandy hole with very good water supply. They say it's about half of the Kalmar County actually could have water supply from that area. But you don't build that construction with plumbery, with pumps, etc. in 1 year. It will take us 10-15 years. So it's the long-term plan, actually. And the short plan is that we actually did a refill plumbery from one lake to another to be able to put in fresh water when the low level of the freshwater lake is done. And actually there were algal bloom in this freshwater lake because it was very shallow lake and it was very hot summer. And we had never had algal bloom in the freshwater lake ever before. But this last summer was the first. So it started a lot of investigation. What can we do about it? So emergency problem, of course, and involved also the agriculture, the forestry, because now we are talking about the problem is the refilling of fresh water. So wetland is very high on the map for us. Because in the 4th of January this year, we had 1.5 meter higher level of water on the Baltic Sea with overflow problems and heavily rains. So we have low points in the cities, in very important society infrastructure areas as freshwater system, wastewater system, railway station, and they were overflooded. And that's why we in the ERB Water Core Group have this goal, working with water supply and climate change, because it includes both the heavily problem of fresh water supply, but in the same time to deal with the infrastructure when we are overflooded, and how to create a society planning, especially in the cities, but also upstreams by the rivers, how we can smoothing these extreme situations of water. I actually learned from my table just before meeting started that we are sitting actually in the lowest point of Sweden, 1.27. 1.78 below sea level. So it's fantastic. So inhabitants, 245,000 in Kalmar County, 12 municipalities. We are actually having a historical number because for the first time since the end of 1800th century, we are now in the same level of population in my county. Do you know why? Because in the end of the 1800th century, we had a huge starving years in Sweden, and we had a lot of immigration to America. It was like 1/3 or 2/3 of population went abroad. And I usually try to remember the young ones about this when we're talking of migration issues. We have also been there, and we were very satisfied that someone had opened doors when we were on the run, so to say. The Swedish map, I told you before, this is my school map. And they didn't show the Baltic states. They had Iceland here instead. Don't ask me why. It was the Iron Curtain, you know, end of story. And it's really fun that we are in Skåne today. Because, you know, here in Skåne belonged to Denmark.
Yes.
Once upon a time. Yes. And Kalmar was actually announced to be one of the mayor city of Sweden because it was the border to the Danish people. Yeah. So, and you know that Sweden once upon a time conquered on this side, so we have Swedish area on the Baltic states as well, according to common history again. And it took some 100 years, but we will build a bridge, and now we are quite family friends again. This is about population, the border, Baltic Sea, the triangle. We have a problem with infrastructure because in Stockholm, Gothenburg and Malmö, we have this triangle that shows where the immigration were biggest during the days. But also when we talk about infrastructure today, often Stockholm, the national level, talks about Stockholm, Gothenburg and Malmö. And they forgot about this very interesting shore that connects us with the rest of Europe. 50 million inhabitants in this area. So it's a huge business, trade and connection for our countries. When we have this connection